So welcome to Content is Not Just for Christmas. Obviously a timely title. We're just naming this. It came up because we wanted to run a webinar about strategic content marketing. We see a lot of clients where we go in and they're running some content, they're pushing out on a campaign level, but we want to show, from a content marketing perspective, that it's not something you just want to do, on any given month or time. It's something that we want to look strategically at. So that's hopefully what we're going to cover today and how you might be able to go about that. What we're actually going to cover, we're going to look at the content strategy and how to make it work. We're going to look at segmentation and building personas, different types of content that you might want for lead generation. That's a key component, building awareness obviously as well, but generating those leads. How to manage the content build process, some ideas there that you might want to take away. Looking at a strategic content timeline, looking at over a year really, what that might look like, just at a very high level. Looking at some of the technology that you might want to consider to help promote and manage that content. And then we're going to look in terms of content to, nurture and score what's going on in terms of then be able to present that back, for example, to the business or to sales. So I'm going to take a first poll here. Just really want to gauge the kind of reasons for attending. So let me bring that up. It'd be great if you could take that, and I will share this one it helps us understand why people are joining today, and make sure we've got the right kind of audience, the right message going out to the right audience. I'll give it another 10 seconds or so. So really looking at how to, if you really at the start of the journey, we're looking at how you can implement a content strategy, or if you're already doing some content but looking to how to improve that, looking at how you can get leads, or it might just be general interest. It is multiple choice, that one, so I'll quickly share that. So it looks like majority, over half of people are on the content marketing journey, but might want to look at if there's any ways to improve, and we might be able to partake some insights there. Before we get into the kind of how-to, there's a few challenges and tactics I wanted to touch upon, and some great content you can see at the bottom here. This was a recent content marketing trends by the Content Marketing Institute, and Marketing Profs is somebody that we reference quite regularly. So you can see there, based on a study there, that top of the requirements there, or top of the goals really, is around brand awareness and lead generation, generating customers, positioning yourself as a thought leader, getting better engaged online through that content, looking at content for customer loyalty, and driving traffic to the website. So they're really the top ones, and they're definitely what we see when we speak to our customers about the core goals from deploying any kind of content strategy. This one really was a study, again, on the same study by Marketing Profs and Content Marketing Institute, looking at how confident companies are, or marketing departments are, in terms of building that type of content. So very confident in kind of building events, but then case studies, videos. But as we start going down there, it becomes less certain in terms of how to run a webinar, how to write a blog correctly, how to run email, write a white paper, do an ebook, So I think there's still a lot of education in the market in terms of best practice and how to go about some of these content assets. This one was again another interesting an interesting piece from that, which was is content increasing in terms of the volume of content increasing or decreasing? You can see there, way over half in terms of that, nearly 3/4 are definitely increasing more content than they did in the previous 12 months. And we're definitely seeing that, there has been a massive transition to content marketing, and you only need to look online to see the volume of content. So it's really important that you have a solid content strategy within a framework that's built out to really interest and attract your audience, not just a kind of generic, let's just push out anything that we think. The moment it comes to our brain, let's just push it out there. Well, you're going to get a lot of content, but it's not going to really work for you. And then I just wanted to show you this, just to show you the kind of volume of different tactics that you might want to consider. that we're going to look at. So, this is part of the confusion. I mean, you've got social, articles, blogs, case studies, videos, white papers, webinars, infographics, research, building out the website, mobile content, ebooks, So where do you start? What's going to really work for you? So again, building that into a strategy is really, really important. So I just wanted to get another one here, gauge what you think your biggest challenges are in terms of going down, from looking at a content marketing approach. Is it producing content that's going to really interest and engage? Do you understand what that is? Do you understand your audience and how to write content for your audience, produce content for your audience? Do you feel you can produce enough content that you can get out across all those different channels and mechanisms? And if you're going to do that, do you feel like there's a sufficient budget in place to produce that? And obviously the variety of content that you're going to need. There's so many channels and devices out there. You need to have all of that considered. And we see this all too often. You go senior management. Well, what is this content? We just want to push out a brochure, or we want to push out about our products. So, getting that buy-in from senior management can be challenging as well. Again, it's multiple choices, so it's not one or other. It could be all of them. In fact, quite often it is. Okay, I'll close that. Let's share the results. So pretty much top there, producing content that's going to engage. Again, we see that producing enough content definitely, to keep building that that journey and strategy out there. So I think that they're similar to what we see, definitely. And that's based on this was a survey a little older, but if you look there, producing the kind of content that engages was 41%, producing enough content 20%. So I think that pretty much ties in with the results that we've just shown there. Okay, so what we're going to do about it. So one of the first things I wanted to look at was building out content for your audience. And this is a very simplistic view. But before you start building your framework and thinking about different formats and different content, we're going to do an ebook or whatever, you need to think about, well, who's our audience? And obviously your audience could be large. You could have a very significant target audience. So, you might want to start looking at how you can group them. So here we've got Meg, the marketing machine, Simon, the sales professional, and Ellie, the executive. That might be three types of people that we want to communicate with. What we might do is we might have a number of different job titles that fall into there. So, marketing director obviously being one, but you might have CMO, head of marketing, head of digital, sales director, you might have sales manager, head of sales, whatever. So when we want to look at, well, what are the kind of professional goals of these people? What's going to really drive them? What are they trying to do in their day-to-day job? What is their responsibility? But also, what is their personal goal? Become a market influencer maybe, or, earning more money, become a social guru. What kind of key challenges are they facing on a day-to-day basis? So if you can start to understand this, and also where are they most active? Where is a marketing director most active? And this way you start to look at maybe the age range, and it might be they're really into, predominantly on email, or it might be they're very heavily into LinkedIn, or a younger audience might be into Facebook. But what are we trying to do here? We're trying to bucket people. So when we capture leads, when we capture data in the database, we can then, or not just in our database, but out online, in LinkedIn, on all the channels we're going to go out, and we can start to build out our content that's going to resonate and get better engagement. Once we've kind of got that, then we want to really think about how we're going to actually bucket them into those. So once we've got our personas built, we can then start to, in the database, organize all of that. And this is where the technology starts to come in. So if you say you have CRM, you might want to then use campaigns and then bucket all of those people as they come into the database. And similarly on LinkedIn, for example, you might have different groups running for your different persona groups. So then you know where you're going to push your content and who you're going to push your content out to. Thing to think about here is in terms of the brief, making sure you've producing your content as well in a structured way. So you've got the content being produced, wireframed. You've got to think about all of that in terms of, don't just go pushing content. You've got to keep the quality high, making sure you're wireframing it. You've got a draft. You're going through an approvals process to keep that solid. And little piece of technology we use here called Proof HQ it's really good for bringing all that together and managing all of that. Yeah, so that's the good for workflow and collaboration. So how does that fit into then a framework? So once you've got you've got your content and you're starting to build that out, you got to we want to make sure that fits into a framework. So up here we've got awareness to decision. Awareness being obviously we're looking at this stage to build awareness on a certain topic or an issue, or based on that persona that we wanted to drive into the funnel there. Consideration type content is where we're obviously looking at we're looking to help that person consider us as a viable solution, build our brand in there. And then decision is where we're really looking to introduce maybe an offer or the salesperson, a presentation, a demo, a video, whatever it might be. But down here, we've got what we see as three levels of content as well. So your premium type content, if you're looking at any kind of lead generation, you're going to need some of this. You're going to need a gated piece or pieces that people will have to register for. And then in more of your volume type piece where you've got maybe you've got your blog running and you might have data sheets, infographics, other videos, whatever. But these will hang together, in terms of on the site, how they all hang together. So there's a logical journey there for somebody to go maybe from that blog post to that webinar. But around all of that, you're going to need a lot of supporting content. You're going to need, your landing pages. You're going to need a lot of social content. If you're going to go down this, manage through social channels, there's going to be a lot of social content that needs to feed into that. Your discussions, your tweets, your emails, so on. And here's, some examples of what that content, might look like. Some of the ones that we've, so making sure your landing pages are built to convert. If it's a webinar, making sure you've got your content templated out for a webinar, particularly making sure your guide's structured well. So making sure your content's built, designed well, but also built from a conversion point of view and all hangs together. So you might have a landing page that goes through to the guide. The guide, might go through to another webinar, so on and so on. Also, really key to remember is to build responsively. If you're doing any kind of web assets, we need to make sure that it's been built for every device. So, you don't want to lose all that hard work if you're pushing it out, an email out, for example, that it's going to get read because, the landing page and the email is built, across mobile, tablet, so on. So here's an example of on our blog, here's the blog, but down here, content. So this blog post is about content, the year of sponsored content. So now we've got a webinar, up and coming webinar down here. Content is not just for Christmas. So, the idea is we want to see, did that person read that and logically go to there? You might want to use pop-ups, to pop up on there, and then that will logically take them off maybe to our webinar section over here. So that blog naturally leads into the webinar, which naturally leads into videos and resources, which naturally leads into all of our propositions up here. So this screen really is looking at the overall schedule, the content schedule. So very simplistic view, what we might decide is, well, what we want to do is we want to have a webinar running, in the first period, then a guide, then another webinar, and I might have a white paper being produced. And then at the bottom here, we've got all of our freemium content. So what's happening here is, first thing we need to make sure is that we're getting these landing pages ready, because you can't promote anything without the landing pages. We can't do any kind of social promotion on that content. And then we've got all of our social content ready. But say if it is a webinar, this webinar might be running on this date here. So we're going to run that registration form is live. The moment the webinar happens, then we might turn that into a recording, register for the recording or download the recording, whatever. And then all the social content will change. Similarly with emails, we might have emails going out to promote that, and then if it's a guide, that guide, and you can see these fade out because depends how much interest we're getting on that. That guide we might keep gated for quite some time because it's really valuable, it's great, we're getting a lot of interest from it. The moment it starts to peter out, we might then drop it down here into our blog, and we might create some articles off the back of it. We might use some of the data sheets we had in there. And then we could have a regular social going out off the back of our blog, and regular, bulletin going out that's promoting that. But the idea is that's always going to feed back up. If you're looking at, building that awareness and then feeding that back up into our content campaigns. So this kind of, content marketing to drive traffic, drive awareness, and then feeding back into our content-led campaigns. So one thing I wanted to look at here in terms of this is this is a platform that we use in terms of getting your social content out there. You can see this is really good. You want to make sure you've got the right technology in place to get that content out. It'd be very difficult. You can see the volume of stuff that's going out there to get that and to be able to listen to what's going on, So those streams coming back in, our content's being pushed out, what commentary we're getting, being able to organize that, but also then curate other content. So, well, what other content is out on the web that we might want to share, with our influencers or our customers. And really key to this is to be able to report, get those insights going, so you can really see, what lead. In this case, I can actually see what leads are coming in, where they're coming from, what channels are working, what my best performing posts are, what my worst performing posts are, what my best performing channels are. So I can really analyze that, and that's really at the social level there. So that's a great tool there to manage that. Similarly, with then the email communication, we'd recommend using more of an automated program rather than just a generic kind of email platform. So for example, here, we might then, people might be registering for a webinar. We've got invites going out for the webinar. We might then be hooking in sales, updating Salesforce in this case to do an introductory call. We might have other content going out. So we can have much more of an automated email and digital marketing process happening that's going to really engage the audience, but not forgetting that these all relate back to our original personas and segments. So the content that's going to go out will still relate to there. So that's at the core of it, but then using the automation and technology to manage that. Again, scoring, very simplistic view here, but scoring around all of that is very useful to start to prioritize, what is actually working. So for example, you might have posts going out, content going out, and then, so you might have somebody then, this person's visited our website, they viewed some key content, they downloaded a content piece, they attended a webinar, and their score would build up. But because of who they are, they'll build up, if they're a director level, they might build up a score quicker. So therefore, then we can start to prioritize the database in effect of who's the best, But also looking at that, because we can filter that by, we might say, well, I want to look at its score, but I want to look at it by this content asset, this webinar, and see which are working. So you always want to looking at what's working and what's not working, so we can keep tweaking those dials in effect and having that baseline to improve upon. So back in Salesforce, if you have a sales team, you might, or in CRM, this doesn't have to be Salesforce, but this example is, we can then start to push all that information back into sales in terms of all of that content marketing, what web pages have been visited, what content, what social channels, what webinars have been attended, whatever it might be, but then start to organize that back in CRM so we can then present that back to sales. And again, I think it's really important that we, across the entire journey, we start to have the right insights set up. So, we might want to have a dashboard set up that shows me by content type, right? So here's my funnel of webinars, here's my funnel of white papers. I might want to break it down, by channel. So I might want to look at, this is job titles, so which job titles are interacting, but it might be channel. I might want to do some email variant testing, A/B testing, which emails. So I've got all of these which emails perform the best. That might be, each of those might be the same actual campaign, but it's 6 different variants, and we can see which ones actually performed. So in this case, this orange one obviously is looking like the best performing email there. And then we might want to see all of that through to funnel. So we want to see, well, how many, if we're looking at how many of our leads coming in from our content campaigns are coming in anonymous and then converting to known. That's where we can then start to track them and then basically interact with them at a much more personal level. Once we know who they are, then we can then say this falls into Meg marketing bucket, and then we can start to see that and actually want to see how that turns into revenue as well there. So, really important to get those insights. This was an interesting slide I found by Content Marketing Institute, which I quite liked, kind of an American football analogy. So we might put a soccer analogy on it if you like. But basically what it's showing us is, that the generating the sale might not be the only stage of the journey. So you've got visitors, coming in, which turn into leads, which is quite, quick. They then, there might be quite a long sales process there where we're then pushing out other content. So, the content changes throughout that process. They then become a customer, but then we don't just want to forget about our customers. That's where 80% of our revenue is going to come from. So we want to turn customers into satisfied customers. we want to make sure that we've got retention, that we're retaining those customers, and we want to make sure that we can upsell and turn those customers into advocates or evangelists in this case. So thinking about that program right throughout the entire journey is important. So, in summary, a few key points I wanted to pick out here. So I think it's really important that when you're thinking about your content strategy, you think you're pulling in the right people to help with that, the right stakeholders. So we would run workshops, and in that workshop, obviously you're gonna have marketing, but you need somebody that really understands as well how to build that framework, what personas are, the expert around content marketing. But then, pulling that together, you might want to bring in sales. Sales are always they're going to know what issues their customers are facing or their prospects face, what challenges, what resonates. That's what sales do, right? They're qualifying, they're trying to position that. So, bringing that back into the content is very useful. You might want to bring in your partners, your customers, product specialists, into there to help build out that content strategy. But always keep the long-term view. You might have a 3-month window in terms of this is what we're actually going to do over the next 3 months, but this is our long-term plan for the next year, and this is how it all hangs together. Definitely need key bits of technology. So, you're going to need, I would say, you want to look at, your artwork management technology to make sure you can produce content from a brief stage to a finished piece quickly, without emails going flying about, without track changes on Word and so on. Definitely want to look at a good push, social and blogging type technology to get that content out there and to track all of that. Then your marketing automation in terms of tracking all that, and then obviously feeding all that back into CRM. But keep testing A/B testing. Keep testing what's working, what posts are working, what's not working. Keep analyzing that. So you keep evolving that process. And obviously making sure you're building out, looking at what channels you're going to focus on, and making sure you're building out your content for the right channels, knowing where your audience are. But definitely need to think about how people are viewing that content on what devices. And think about all that hangs together. Think about the buyer process. From somebody reading a blog to somebody then getting a webinar to then what's going to happen from that point. We want to think about that journey. So we've always got that momentum and engagement going. So I just wanted to finish quickly 1 minute about us, because you might not know who we are, but that's what we do. We help companies with their strategy, that creating the content, digital marketing, and then automating all that back into sales and CRM. So that's where we really fit into the program. And we at the core of that, we do use a number of, that's just a sample. Dynamics or the other technologies to manage that whole process is very important to achieve those net business objectives. So I'm going to wish you all a Merry Christmas and thanks for joining. I hope you have a great Christmas and going to be a good 2015. I'm going to see if there's any questions that have popped up in. If they're good ones, I'll read them out. So I've got a first question about what calendar system do you use for your campaigns. So we actually our calendar is built. We have all of our content is managed in a system called Pro Workflow. So we have it manages the whole program for the whole year. So all of our campaigns and content strategy goes into there, and then we get a complete calendar view on that. So that's something, if you wanted to find more about how we manage the whole process, we could talk about. How to increase buy-in. I've got a question here. How to increase buy-in? Definitely, I would say get a workshop. Get the people around the table that want to do this. And, if you've got an agency partner that you work with as well, this is the kind of thing, we would recommend you. There's nothing like getting around the table and having a structured workshop where you can really start to build out a scope. With that scope, and if you can get the right people around that table, then the senior management will start really see the value and understand it, and how it fits into to the business, and build that out into a really solid scope of work that you can execute on. I'm getting a question here about what marketing automation platform do we use. We use Acton, hooked into Salesforce. So that's how we automate those programs and handle all of that scoring. So that's just one. There are others. We really like Acton because it's simple and cost effective at that level. But we work with other platforms as well, but that's the one we actually use. Yes, I've got a question here about the presentation. It's not a PDF actually, but we'll send a video and we'll send out. You'll be able to access a version of this definitely. So we'll get those over to you. Getting a question if budget's very limiting. Webinars. I would say if you've got a limited budget, webinars are a great one because you don't need. There's not high production costs for starters. You can pull together a webinar quite quickly because it's more about your intellect and IP in your head, opposed to a really detailed lot of copy. That doesn't mean it should be badly done though. So, hopefully you'll see that our webinars we think, look good and, they're professionally produced and, you do need visual elements in there. Don't just have bullet points on PowerPoint, it's boring. But webinars, we often get this when we go and see a new client. To get an ebook off the ground it takes a lot. But if you've got a limited budget, I'd say look at your website. That's core to everything. You've got to get your website sorted, and something we've been definitely working on, and we're launching our new website tomorrow, actually. So please go look at it tomorrow. But the core of that should be the website in terms of how those hang together, making sure you can launch those webinars, whatever it is, and making sure you've got the blog. And then, just start out by doing maybe one a quarter and start off small. So, you do need to start somewhere. So I'm getting, what do we use to create the webinar content graphics? Well, actually, because we're all on Macs here, this is all done by our creative team, done in Keynote, which is a Mac product. So all the graphics are done by our creative team who manage all of the content production. But there's various. So Prezi is quite nice in terms of producing webinars. So I'm getting a question here about the monthly budget. What kind of budget should we spend? $1 million question. If we spend £500 per month on SEO, what should be spending on content per month? Well, that's a good question, and I definitely want to raise something there about SEO. SEO and content marketing are the same thing, in my opinion. They should be. You should be building your content for search. If it's going out online, you're writing a blog, you should be building it for search. You should have the right website. If you've got WordPress, for example, that you've got your templates built in the right way. You've got your right headers and everything. So content marketing and SEO are not two different things. And I think what we definitely see is a lot of clients that will be spending money on SEO and not really knowing where that's going. And a few years ago, SEO consisted of backlinks, doing backlinks to your site and so on and so on. It's much more about good content and getting a good content. Google are not stupid. They know what people are looking for. People are not looking for where the backlinks are. They're looking for good content. So, having a good content strategy should be part of your SEO. Having said that, if you are just wanting to, like, say, run a blog and drive traffic to your website, you might be able to do that for £500 a month. But I'd definitely say if you wanted to do, run serious content such as ebooks, white papers, you're going to be looking at several £1,000s a month. It depends what you incorporate into that cost. I mean, if it's just budget, but the amount of time, this is the thing, it's time that needs to be considered into this factor as well.